And welcome back to another lesson. This time we're looking at the non-Spanish colonization. We'll be looking at life in these colonies tomorrow. We looked at the Spanish colonies yesterday, so y'all know the drill. Pretty basic stuff. If I do everything correctly, this will actually be the shortest of our lessons, so let's just get started. All right, learning objectives basically haven't changed. Keep them in the forefront of your mind. All right, so back on Friday, we talked about the Treaty of Tordesillas, how it divided the world between Portugal and Spain, then left everybody out. And it's a pretty good illustrative example of people voluntarily ignoring the Catholic Church. You could technically use it in an essay on the fading power of the Catholic Church, but what really shreds the treaty is the Protestant Reformation and the exit of certain nations from the Catholic Church. That pretty much shoves the Treaty of Tordesillas off the boat entirely, and it gives a religious element to colonization, especially on the part of the English slash British and the Dutch, who are the major Protestant colonizing powers. And it also is ignorance of this treaty is also what results in the linguistic diversity we see in North America, especially the French spoken in parts of Canada and in Louisiana with the Cajuns. The fact that this lesson is in English as taught by an American, that sort of thing. Moving on. Right, so another example of one of those fun A-push or American One flashbacks, we're going to talk about briefly talk about mercantilism. Mercantilism? Whatever. Say it however you want. Mercantilism is the guiding philosophy behind pretty much all of these colonies. It's the idea that trade in an empire should be as self-contained as possible. Import as little as you can, export as much as you can, accumulate gold. Disregard trade, acquire gold. Um, Colonies are supposed to be closed markets. You guys who have a decent memory of American history know that this is the philosophy that will eventually push America to revolt against Great Britain, but it was the guiding philosophy behind other colonies too. That's why you have so many sugar colonies, as you'll see tomorrow, for example. Just people, nobody specialized in anything. All these empires were trying to produce their own stuff. Um, and for obvious reasons, this is going to influence expansion. Mercantilism leads to wars. It leads to colonial expansion. And it is going to cause a lot of problems. We'll talk about the decline and fall of mercantilism when we get to the Enlightenment and Adam Smith. Right. So the earliest non-Iberian powers to show up, and remember Iberian is just Portugal and Spain, the earliest non-Iberians to show up in the Americas are the French. And the French found out that the waters off of Canada and in the St. Lawrence River were very good for fishing, as well as the presence of fur animals, most notably beaver, that were becoming rarer and rarer in Europe. And with global temperatures on the decline during this time period, fur was very valuable. And so colonization was focused primarily in the north, which also kept the French clear of the Spanish. We'll talk about this a little bit more tomorrow, but the French colony's population was never very high. That's hinted at in the map on the right-hand side. The only other major French colony that you must know is a place called Saint-Domingue, which started out as a pirate haven, but was eventually made an official colony by the French during the 1600s. Saint-Domingue is now known as modern Haiti, something that we'll talk about later as well. All right, the English slash British colonies are the ones you're going to be extremely familiar with, owing mostly to American One or APUSH or both. And so I'm not going to dwell too much on them. You'll note at the bottom, if you've ever wondered what's the difference between England and Britain, in 1707, England, which also contained Wales, unified with Scotland, and that made the British term Britain the official term to use. Hi, Melvin. The sorry guys, cats. The British slash English, if you write the wrong term, like if you write about the British colonies in the 1500s and are like, oh no, I screwed up, guys, this isn't AP Euro, you should be fine with that. Try to do it, but don't get too hung up on it. Anyway, fast forwarding through it, you guys should already know this. The English wind up with the land between the French and Spanish colonies. Most of y'all have grown up in North Carolina, so you've heard the story of the lost colony so many times. If you haven't, just know it was a failed colony on our coast, and all of the colonists disappeared, meaning they either died or moved with the Indians, but it's a lot more mysterious to say they disappeared. Jamestown, which starts in 1607, is the first successful settlement, though it really does survive by the skin of its teeth. There's some more successful colonies in the Americas. You can see the red up there, and the fact that this lesson is in English probably gives away that the colonization was successful. And there also were new colonies established further south, the certain Caribbean islands that hadn't been claimed, and there were a lot of them, and on Jamaica, probably the largest of the British colonial settlements, which was taken in 1655 from who else but the Spanish. Okay, so now for a diversion into European politics that I'm going to try to make quick because politics makes me all itchy. All right, so back in Europe, you have this huge split in the Catholic and Protestant church that's going to result in a whole lot of violence. We'll talk about that later. The only thing you need to know for this lesson is a group of territories called the Spanish Netherlands broke away from Spain starting in 1568 and fought a really long, really violent struggle against the Spaniards, and they won independence in 1648 and became the United Provinces of the Netherlands. That's it. That's all we do about politics and religion today. Let's get back to colonization. All right, so the Dutch are kind of late to the colonial rush because of the whole fighting Spain for independence, but they're really, really good sailors. And so they're going to claim what is now New York, as well as some islands in the Caribbean. Now, we'll talk about their relations, and you'll read a document about their relations with the natives tomorrow, but there's a reason why the Dutch colonies in North America largely fail. But the big prize for them is going to be in Asia, which they're going to seize several places in Asia, most notable Indonesia, from the Portuguese, and we'll catch up with those territories in a couple of weeks. All right, so the very last one, told you this was the shortest of the lessons. A lot of other European nations actually tried to claim some colonies in the Americas. Sorry, I'm laughing. That parenthetical list is, can you imagine how weird it would be if like there was a successful Lithuanian colony in the Americas? Technically, they were called Courland back there. And my favorite is, of course, that for 4 years, an order of crusaders actually tried to establish a colony. In the Caribbean, and most of these failed very, very quickly. Actually, the Scottish colonial venture is probably the reason Scotland joined with Britain, because their colony failed so hard that the nation went bankrupt. They tried to establish colony in Central America, and the idea of a bunch of Costa Rican Scotsmen makes me very, very happy. Most of these, like I said, failed. They had a lack of resources. They might have had bad enough relations with the natives that the natives chased them off. There's all sorts of reasons colonies fail, because guys, colonization is hard. But the successful colonies are going to shape the future of the American landmass. Not always for positive reasons, especially if you're of Native American or African descent, but they do change the way the world works. All right, guys, 2 down, 2 more to go. Thanks for sticking with me. I will see you all digitally tomorrow.